President Vladimir Putin-led Russia apparently has taken advantage of the lapses coming from the United States, US that has been its secret war rival since 1945. Following the actions of President Donald Trump turning US back on Ukraine by thus stopping and blocking military aid and military intelligence to Ukraine, and obviously led Putin to launch massive drone, cruise and ballistic missile attacks on Ukraine, with some US citizens narrowly escaping deaths on Wednesday night when Russia struck a hotel with a ballistic missile that travels 5 times faster than the speed of sound, killing 4 persons and reportedly injured over 30 others at Kryvyi Rih city, with the Ukrainian military saying they were able to repel all other missiles but could not repel the ballistic airstrikes, according to BBC. This Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy said that the France F-16 jets and Mirage Aircrafts were used to defend the Ukrainian skies, adding that the France Mirage aircraft successfully intercepted Russian cruise missiles. President Zelenskyy, in a press statement a few hours ago, said that last night the Russian army carried out another massive attack on our energy infrastructure. Various facilities were targeted in several regions: Odessa, Poltava, Chernihiv, and Ternopil. In total, the Russians used nearly 70 missiles, both cruise and ballistic, as well as almost 200 attack drones. All of this was directed against infrastructure that ensures normal life. Currently, repair and restoration work is ongoing wherever needed. Unfortunately, ordinary residential buildings have also been damaged. In Kharkiv, a Russian missile hit close to an apartment building. People were injured. They are receiving the necessary assistance. Today, F-16 fighter jets and Mirage aircraft provided by France were used to protect Ukrainian skies. In particular, the Mirages successfully intercepted Russian cruise missiles. Thank you. I also want to recognize the performance of our anti-aircraft missile forces, Army Aviation, all our electronic warfare units, and mobile fire groups. The first steps toward real peace must include forcing the sole source of this war, Russia, to stop such attacks against life. And this is something that can be effectively monitored. Silence in the skies, banning the use of missiles, long-range drones, and aerial bombs. And silence at sea, a real guarantee of normal navigation. Ukraine is ready to pursue the path to peace, and it is Ukraine that strives for peace from the very first second of this war. The task is to force Russia to stop the war. On Thursday, Zelenskyy said that everyone must ensure that Russia, the sole source of this war, accepts the need to end it. This can be proved by 2 forms of silence: no attacks on energy and other civilian infrastructure, a truce for missiles, bombs, long-range drones, no military operations in the Black Sea. Following the attacks on Wednesday night, Zelenskyy said that, all night, a rescue operation continued in Kryvyi Rih at the site of a Russian missile strike. A ballistic missile struck an ordinary hotel. Just before the attack, volunteers from a humanitarian organization, citizens of Ukraine, the United States, and the United Kingdom had checked into the hotel. They survived because they managed to get down from their rooms in time. Unfortunately, 4 people were killed in this attack. My condolences to their families and loved ones. In total, more than 30 people were injured, and all have received the necessary medical assistance. Many civilian buildings around the hotel were also damaged. Rescue workers are still on site, and all emergency services continue to operate. I thank everyone who is on duty these days and nights, working and serving to save lives. My gratitude goes out to the State Emergency Service of Ukraine, the National Police, medical workers, emergency responders, and all those whose work helps save lives. There must be no pause in the pressure on Russia to stop this war and terror against life, Zelenskyy stated. We had reported that the Ukrainian President, Volodymyr Zelenskyy, in a written and video statement on Monday, has said that what Ukrainians need is a true and honest peace deal and not endless war, just as President Donald Trump of the US and one of the world's richest billionaires, Elon Musk, had continued to use their privileged office and position in the society to launch a terrorist-like media cold war against the person of President Zelenskyy, apparently to weaken his zeal and cause public disaffection against the Ukrainian president by thus using dangerous negative communication styles of half-truth, manipulated facts, deliberate misrepresentation of facts, misinterpretation of words, spin logic, bullying, game shaming, blaming, belittling, mockery, and trying to hold Ukraine ransom by blocking U.S. military aid to the troubled country for a war. It appears Donald Trump is the first U.S. president that kick-started it by thus. The Trump administration first approved the sale of Javelin anti-tank missiles to Ukraine in December 2017, after civil unrest ensued in Ukraine in 2014 with a protest codenamed Revolution of Dignity, which ousted and forced him to exile in Russia the then pro-Russia president, Viktor Fedorovich Yanukovych, on February 22, 2014. Just a day after, President Vladimir Putin mobilized troops and invaded Ukraine, succeeded in taking over Ukraine's territorial land of Crimea, an action the then US President Barack Obama retaliated by only placing sanctions on Russia assets for violating the constitutional rights of Ukraine. The 2017 action of Donald Trump was a step that former President Barack Obama never took, which Trump allies pointed to be a sign of Trump's toughness on Russia and good for US business, which, given Ukraine lethal weapons, had been a red line for Obama, who feared that it could cause Russia to escalate conflict, which President Vladimir Putin-led Russia actually did. And Ukraine has been fighting Russian soldiers and Russia-backed armed separatists in its eastern provinces since 2014, shortly after Russia illegally occupied and annexed Crimea, in a war that has claimed approximately 13,000 lives and displaced 1.5 million people, according to the Ukrainian government before Volodymyr Zelenskyy became Ukrainian president in May 20, 2019 on the platform of Servant of the People political party, and before Zelenskyy became president. Putin violated 3 ceasefire peace deals under Donald Trump in January, February and March 2019, and as at December 2019, Ukrainian military reported a total of more than 70 ceasefire deals violated by Putin-led Russia. And during his inaugural speech on May 20, 2019, when Volodymyr Zelenskyy took office as president of Ukraine, he said his priority was a ceasefire in the Donbas, and also asserted that Crimea and Donbas are Ukrainian land, and that the people living in those regions are not strangers, they are ours, Ukrainians, truly. On December 9, 2019, the Russian President Vladimir Putin, French President Emmanuel Macron, German Chancellor Angela Merkel, and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy met in person in Paris, France, and agreed on a ceasefire and prisoners exchange. But on same day, 3 Ukrainian soldiers were killed by a landmine by Russian-backed forces who violated the ceasefire several more times in December using BMP-1 armored vehicles, grenade launchers, heavy machine guns, and small arms. This Ukrainian military recorded additional 47 ceasefire peace deals. Violations in 2020. More than 180 ceasefire peace deals violations in 2021 until February 24, 2022. President Vladimir Putin declared full-scale war on Ukraine, describing U.S. government, previous and present he referred to as Washington during his war declaration nationwide address, as an empire of liars. We had reported that President Donald Trump of the United States, U.S. may be trying to cause unnecessary confusion to the traditional way of war settlements, which date back to the end of World War I in 1918 and World War II in 1945, when Germany, considered as the aggressor, was meant to pay damages or reparation or the costs incurred by the US, Britain, France, and the Soviet Union, which comprises Russia, Ukraine, and 13 other republics, when Germany on August 1, 1914 mobilized troops from Berlin to support the defunct Austria-Hungary country, which included German-speaking Austrians, Magyars, Slavs, and Italians, after the Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia on June 28, 1914, following the bombing and shooting to death the Archduke Franz Ferdinand, the heir to Austro-Hungarian throne, and his wife, Sophie, a Duchess of Hohenberg, by a suspected group of extremists from Serbia that wanted to increase Serbian power in the Balkans by breaking up the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and the shooting specifically was carried out by a 19-year-old Gavrilo Princip, Russia came to the aid of Serbia, and with the support of other countries like Britain and France, Austria-Hungary was defeated after so many deaths, especially on the side of Serbia's civilian populations. And at the end of the World War I, Germany was made to pay the damages and costs of war as the aggressor. And on September 1, 1939, Adolf Hitler of Germany, who is considered a nationalist extremist, on his apparent quest to expand iron race in Europe, invaded Poland, a border country whose people were considered inferior and powerless people, likely the same way Vladimir Putin of Russia may have seen Ukrainians. The action of Adolf Hitler forced Britain, France, US, and the Soviet Union to declare war on Germany on September 3, 1939, and the defeated Germany at the end of the World War II in 1945 after Adolf Hitler and his top generals refused to surrender and reportedly committed suicides inside their underground bunkers after millions of deaths, especially Jews. And in order to make Germany unable to attack another country again, Britain, France and US occupied West Germany, including West Berlin, for years with capitalist economy system, and at the same time, the Soviet Union occupied East Germany, including East Berlin, with communist economy system, and Germany, considered as the aggressor, was again made to pay the damages or the costs of the World War II, which Germany has struggled to pay, up to 2010, and it may be clearer that no victim of World War I, Serbia and World War II, Poland was apparently made to pay debts or sign economic deals for the costs incurred by the countries that came to their aid. This may justify the action of Donald Trump requesting Ukraine to sign rare earth minerals deal with the US as criminally exploitative demand, and Donald Trump pushing the narratives that Europe will get their money back and US will not get its money back is simply and half-truths meant to mislead the public. Like President Emmanuel Macron of France recently corrected Donald Trump at the Oval Office that Europe is not getting the money back from Ukraine, that Russia is the one to pay them back the money, most especially from the seized Russia assets in Europe, and the US under the immediate past President Joe Biden seized billions of dollars of Russia assets confiscated to finance US aid to Ukraine. Interestingly, Vladimir Putin of Russia, who is also considered as a nationalist extremist like Adolf Hitler of Germany, on February 24, 2022, in a world news broadcast, made it very clear that he decided to declare special military operations in Ukraine because of US, that for many years, the US tried to expand its powers, stressing he does not have problem with Europe or NATO, saying, NATO is the US foreign policy used by the North America to try to conquer Russia by thus enlisting some other countries that made up the defunct Soviet Union into NATO, and he would never allow US to assemble its military infrastructures in Ukraine, its closest neighboring country. Hence he decided to go after the pro-US Ukrainian politicians and government officials by demilitarizing Ukraine and reclaiming it as an independent territory he said was once part of Russia, adding that he mobilized Russian troops to invade and reclaim parts of Ukraine, which included Crimea, in 2014 in support of Russian-speaking people in Donbas he said were suffering humiliation and genocide attack by Kyiv government for many years, which President Volodymyr Zelenskyy in several occasions has accused Putin of always sponsoring and organizing terrorists to kill Ukrainians. We had reported that the Ukrainian President, Volodymyr Zelenskyy, has told United States US President Donald Trump that Ukrainians don't need just a ceasefire from President Vladimir Putin-led Russia, but a complete end to the war, which Ukraine's security will be guaranteed from further or future invasions from the neighboring rival European country, adding that he was in the United States to sign rare earth mineral deals as drafted by both countries' teams, which included Ukraine's security guarantee, making the statement at the Oval Office on Friday afternoon according to American local time, when the meeting went smoothly, friendly and calmly for more than 35 minutes until the US Vice President, J.D. Vance, interrupted and brought in US internal political matters into the Russia-Ukraine issue by thus condemning the administration of the immediate past President of the US, Joe Biden, for always appearing before the press to accuse Putin and Russia of bringing destructions to Ukraine without an act of diplomacy to peace path, which he said the current President, Donald Trump, is trying to achieve. And the Ukrainian President, Volodymyr Zelenskyy, quickly responded and asked the US Vice President J.D. Vance what kind of diplomacy is he talking about, reminding the vice president that Putin has been destroying lives in Ukraine for years during the era of previous presidents before Joe Biden, including 2014 when Russia took over Crimea to 2022 and 2019 during the first tenure of President Donald Trump when he signed a ceasefire peace deal with Putin, but the Russian president broke the ceasefire and continued to destroy lives in Ukraine. Obviously and apparently annoyed, Vice President JD responded by accusing the visiting Zelensky of coming to the Oval Office to disrespect U.S. sitting president in his office, adding that no president in the world has ever done that before in the Oval Office. The full length of the meeting video footage and the Fox News interview with Zelensky shortly after the Oval Office meeting ended with heated arguments and series of crosstalks are published in full in our audio and video versions of this news reportage. We had reported that contrary to media speculations that the embattled Ukraine has reached an agreement with the United States, US-led President Donald Trump on the rare earth minerals deal required as exchange or economic benefits for the US to continue to assist the war-torn Ukraine with military aid against ongoing President Vladimir Putin-led Russian military destructions and bring peace to the country, the Ukrainian President, Volodymyr Zelenskyy, in a video press release on Wednesday night debunks the speculations, saying, "The US and the Ukrainian teams have been working together in preparation for the negotiations on the terms of the economic deal this coming Friday in the US, signaling, no agreement has been reached yet." We had reported that the United States President, Donald Trump, has said that if the war in Ukraine is not stopped now, it could lead or escalate to World War III, with the visiting French President, Emmanuel Macron, insisting that Russia is the aggressor of the war, hence Russia must pay damages as part of the negotiations for the peace deal. But the US, in another meeting at the United Nations General Assembly on Monday, joined Russia to vote against a resolution condemning Russia over the war in Ukraine. We had reported that, following the public criticism of President Donald Trump of the United States that the Ukrainian President, Volodymyr Zelenskyy, is a man who has lost touch with his people and a dictator who refused to conduct election for new leader to take over the affairs of the country. Zelenskyy, while asked if he could resign by a journalist at a press conference organized to mark the third-year anniversary of war in Ukraine, says he would do that if it would bring peace to Ukraine, and he's ready to do that as exchange for Ukraine to be enlisted as a member of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO. We had earlier reported that despite the medical condition that he's under, the high flow of oxygen in the hospital over double pneumonia, Pope Francis on Sunday, on the eve of the third-year anniversary of the war in Ukraine launched by President Vladimir Putin-led Russia government, called on everyone in the world to remember victims of the war in Ukraine, describing the war, which started on February 24, 2022, as painful, shameful for all humanity. Previously, we reported that the Ukrainian President, Volodymyr Zelenskyy, has continued his phone conversations with world leaders with a video and written press statement on Saturday saying that the world leaders must ensure that the Russian President, Vladimir Putin, is not allowed to deceive the world again, insisting that Putin has used Russian army, intelligence services and mercenaries over 30 years to bring death to America, Europe, Africa, Middle East, Syria. This, Zelenskyy stated after he began special defense campaign with phone conversations with world leaders following strained relationship with one of the countries that has majorly assisted Ukraine in its defense against Russia since 2022 when the war began, United States, US President Donald Trump, who threatened to stop military aid to Ukraine, claiming that Ukraine started the war it knows it cannot win, calling President Volodymyr Zelenskyy a modestly successful comedian and a dictator that deceived the immediate past US President, Joe Biden, to commit over $350 billion of US taxpayers' money on a war the North America country will not get any profit in return, with the Ukrainian President accusing Donald Trump of disinformation and saying that Putin-led Russia has intensified attacks and launched massive bomb destructions on Ukraine's cities and villages during the week of Donald Trump's outburst.
Bringing you the news in a more digital way.